Recording in progress.
Bore da. Cynhyrfod Sue Shotter ydw i.
Good morning. I'm Councillor Sue Shotter.
And I am the Chair of the Council. Can I welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a hybrid meeting, with a translation facility available. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available following the conclusion of the meeting through the Council's website. For members in the chamber, please note that you raise your hands if you wish to speak. For those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function. Committee members who attend remotely are required to leave their cameras on throughout the debate and when voting to maintain the integrity of the decision making. If you do leave the meeting for a short period, pop a message into the chat function and let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to be respectful to each other. That applies to the members, officers and anyone in the public gallery. Diolch yn fawr. Just for information members, I will be moving agenda 11 to agenda slot 12 and vice versa. I will let you know when that's happening. Okay, moving on to agenda 1, agenda for apologies. Any apologies? Sally Pritchard, Committee Service Officer.
Apologies have been received from Councillors Neil Coverley, Cheryl Carlisle, Alan Hunter and Elizabeth Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr. Agenda 2, Declarations of Interest, Code of Local Government Conduct. Members are reminded that they must declare the existence and nature of the declared personal interest. Any declarations?
Yes, Chair. Item 11, Council Tax Premium.
Councillor Abdul, Councillor Chris Cater, Councillor Gale, Councillor Sean, and
should we take the interests individually, Chair, and then we can be sure about what they are?
Okay, that's fine. Okay, I will start with Councillor Abdul.
Chair, yes, item 11, Council Tax Premiums.
Council tax premiums. Is that personal and prejudicial?
Yes,
Councillor
Chair.
Abdul? Yes, so you'll be leaving
I'll be leaving on item 11.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to Councillor Anne McCaffrey online.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Chair. An interest, personal and prejudicial, again in item 11, which is council tax premiums. Thanks, Chair.
Diolch yn fawr. Councillor Chris.
Yes, it's item 11. My wife has a property that falls into one of those categories, so it's prejudicial. I will be leaving the meeting. Thank you.
Diolch. Councillor Gale.
Item 11 again, close personal friends and property myself.
Diolch yn fawr. Councillor Sean.
Yeah, the same item 11, prejudicial. I'll be leaving. Thank you.
And I will be declaring myself. It will be prejudicial and I will be actually leaving the room. Same, I have a second property. Anybody else anybody on Zoom I've missed?
Yes. Yes, Chair. Also item 11, prejudicial and council tax premiums.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr.
Okay. Any other declarations? Councillor Dab Jones.
Yes, item 11 as well, same as everybody else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I think that's all the declarations today. Okay, we move on to agenda item 3. Any urgent matters? No urgent matters. I'm going to move on to agenda item 4, minutes of the council. So there's 2 that we're going to do today. So this is to approve the correct record of the minutes of the council. We will start with 18th of July, 2024, pages 4 to 8, and I'll take them individually. 5, 7, 8. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Nia. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gale. I have a proposer and a seconder. If we can now go to the vote by show of hands in the chamber and on Zoom members. Any against? Any abstentions? That's been carried. Moving on to the next minutes, which is the 22nd of August, 2024, pages 9 to 12. So 9, 10, 11, 12. Do I have a proposer? Proposer for those? Oh, Councillor Carroll and a seconder, Councillor Emily. Okay, members, we have a proposer and a seconder. If we can now go to the vote by show of hands on Zoom and in the chamber. Any against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's being carried, members. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 5, to receive an announcement from the chairperson, leader, members of the cabinet or the chief executive. Well, I'll actually start. I'm going to quickly, can I first just congratulate Councillor Jacob for his outstanding contribution award, for his bravery and compassion in helping a young girl during a very stressful, life-threatening event. Congratulations on your award. And I would also like to congratulate Councillor Mike and Lorraine on being a grandparent for the very first time. And Primrose Sean, what a beautiful name. Congratulations, and I hope Zoe and the baby are doing really well. Oh, you're more than welcome. Okay, just a few announcements that I've been to. On the 28th of July, I attended the Llandudno Civic Sunday. Councillor Mike Pierce, I got the invite from, who is the Mayor of Llandudno. And on the 8th of September, I attended the Flintshire Civic Sunday and would like to pass my thanks on to Councillor Dennis Hutchinson, Chair of Flintshire. On the 14th September, I attended the citizen ceremonies in Llandudno Town Hall, which is always an amazing experience. And finally, on the 3rd of October, I had the privilege of attending the launch of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the longest yarn on tour. If anyone has not yet had the opportunity to see that, I would suggest that you actually do. You will find it in the main exhibition at Holy Trinity Church, Llandudno, which is hosting a 3D masterpiece, 80 meters long, which has been hand knitted from over 1,000 knitters from all over the world. This will be on view until the 22nd of October, so please go if you can. Councillor Sharon, Vice Chair, had the privilege to represent the council at the D-Day Merchants Remembrance Day on the 1st of September at Llandudno. Okay, I already have had one announcement, which is Councillor Emily.
Thanks, Chair. Just housing update really. So I just wanted to highlight the resettlement team are really continuing to support the work with refugees across the county. And the next tranche of work will start in early in the new year. We've had 410 guests have been supported since the start of the scheme, and 205 refugees are currently in Conway. It's been a really good scheme. The team have worked really, really hard on that. And it just shows that when we've got a safe passage and we're dealing with victims of war with compassion, what we can do. So given the conflicts that are going on in the Middle East at the moment, I hope this kind of scheme is supported in the future. Just on our housing support grant, there is a review on that being undertaken. That's the grant that's prevention of homelessness. So we had a providers forum to ensure that we can kind of shape the future of that and the commissioning plans. It's really important that we're engaging with service users to ensure that we're meeting those needs. The projects are all under review and that's all underway. And in January, the information will all be brought together and considered so that we can move forward with that with the new projects being commissioned or decommissioned or remodelled, so that we're really making sure that we meet the need, because we all know that prevention is key. Our temporary accommodation is really, we're doing well with trying to get that down. It's all going in the right trajectory, and the focus has been to continue to reduce that B&B cost. There's been negotiations over the summer about the standing charge of that, which is reducing, and we'll be working to end agreements with providers if they are not willing to work with us to reduce that rate. And our RSL partners have been really good helping with that side of things, and we developed a small project about kind of supported and shared schemes as well to try and keep people out of bed and breakfast. There's been lots of grant and acquisition work going on at the moment so that we can best utilise the grant that comes in to Conway as to which grants that we can go for. As you know from our SPRs and previous updates, we do really well with being able to utilise a lot of grant, and we are kind of punching above our weight with what we're drawing in. But this has been a particularly kind of pressing time, and timescales are incredibly tight, even though the funding's good. So just a really big thanks to Jodie, Jude, Emma and Anna and the rest of the team for their hard work really juggling that, because it's been it's an ever moving jigsaw to try and make sure that we're utilising grant in the best way possible. So yeah, just wanted to really highlight that. And I've been covering bits of social care recently whilst the social care cabinet members have been on leave. So there's some quite exciting bits just to highlight about the workforce in there. So there's the graduate scheme that went out to, then 2 posts have been successfully appointed to there. There's been loads of interest in that. There was 40 applicants, 9 were shortlisted for interview. So it just shows the level of interest people have to be social workers when we create an opportunity for them to work as well as learn at the same time. And there's the progression pathway for residential care, which is the development to assist us in meeting the new workforce challenges that comes with increasing our residential provision. That's a learning opportunity for people who previously wouldn't have met the qualifications to gain employment as the residential childcare worker. There'll be different levels, and at each point the team are supported with gaining those qualifications on site while supporting young people with the provision. So we're really focusing on that values base and building on life experiences that people have whilst giving them the opportunity to progress. And that obviously builds resilience within the team. So we all know that the financial backdrop isn't great, but I just really wanted to highlight that there's lots of good work that's going on in the council, and there's lots of things going on to really try and improve the lives of residents. Thank you, Chair.
Diolch, Councillor Emily. Some great opportunities there. I'm going to call in Councillor Dilwyn.
Just being short, just want to show my appreciation to the group leader and the council for trusting me to take on this role, and also to take advantage of this opportunity to thank again Aaron for his work and also his cooperation, and he's been transferring everything to me, and it's been a big support. Thank you, and all the best for the future.
Councillor Dilwyn. That portfolio holder is in very safe hands. Okay, moving on to Councillor Charlie.
Diolch, Gareth. I'd like to formally thank Dilwyn for taking up the cabinet role. I'm delighted to have him. You say a real talent and experience, which is really valuable in the difficult times we face. And of course, I'm incredibly sorry to see Aaron go. He's a very, very talented young man who has worked incredibly hard, not just in his own portfolio, but he also stepped in to take over the difficult portfolio of housing when Councillor Emery is on maternity leave. So I wish him, I'm sure we all do, as he moves into his 3rd year of studies, all the best in his future endeavour and future careers. Members may be aware, 2.5 years ago, I was appointed one of the 4 spokesperson for social care and health by the Welsh Local Government Association. At our last meeting, I was appointed as the lead spokesperson. They're obviously happier with my work than Councillor Paul, but there we go. So within that capacity, I had the privilege of attending the Association of Directors of Social Services annual conference in Cardiff, where I was asked to give an address to the conference. It was a really inspiring couple of days. Obviously, there were lots of concerns raised along the lines we've spoken today with Betsy in terms of the health board, in terms of our budgets, in terms of how we engage and interface. But there were some really inspirational pieces there about the importance of the work we do, the importance of the preventive work we do, and some really inspiring pieces. There was also some really positive stuff around the use of AI and the real practical ways that can be used to lessen the administrative burden on our social workers. The only downside was the 9-hour trip back from Cardiff, which involved 4 trains and eventually an Uber from Crewe, getting back at about 11 o'clock last night. But I had fantastic company with Jenny, and then the guys, Captain Steph. We coped well under pressure, didn't we, Jenny? We left a number at the residents, that Denbighshire councillors. Some of them stayed in Hereford, some of them gave up in Birmingham, stayed in hotels. So Conway, as always, saw it through to the end, and we all got home safely. So yeah, diolch.
Diolch, Councillor Charlie. I'm just going to call in Chief Executive Ryan.
Yeah, I can't compete with the trains, planes, automobile story, I'm afraid. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of things. On the back of the presentation we had this morning from our neighbours in Betsy, I'm just drawing your attention to another date in your diary, which is SIDBA presentation on the 19th of November at 10:30. It'll be an opportunity to have a presentation on their work with us and the background, the financial background in the sector at the moment. And also they're bringing a commissioner with them who's worked closely with authorities that have gone into financial difficulties. It's just out of context. It's just important. A lot of discussions, nationally at the moment about the sector and the difficulties and the pressures. So I felt it was timely to have SIDBA here, just because they have been working closely with us on a couple of things. Also, before our council in December, the WLGA will be giving us a presentation, so that's a little Christmas present for you sometime in December. So just drawing your attention to keep you busy. So not that we have enough to do already, but I think there will be presentation that will be of benefit. Thank you.
Okay, members, I'm going to move on to agenda item 6. To answer questions under the Council Procedure Rule number 14.2, I have no questions. Okay, I'll move on to agenda item 7, to receive the minutes of the Democratic Services Committee held on 9th September 2024 and to consider the recommendations relating to minute 247. Councillor Harry Saville, Chair of the Democratic Services Committee, will present this item. Diolch, Councillor Harry.
Yes, thanks, Chair. As you've mentioned, we're receiving the minutes and then there is a recommendation. So if we start with just the minutes, I'm happy to propose that the minutes from the meeting of the 9th of September are noted.
Diolch yn fawr. Okay, I've got a proposer. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Gwennon. Any questions, members? No? Okay. Show of hands then, if we can show hands in the chamber and on Zoom, please. Diolch yn fawr. Any against? Any abstentions? That's been carried. Okay. Councillor Harry, you're back on the floor.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Right. So this brings us to our recommendation, which is contained in minute 247, and it relates to a review of this council scrutiny arrangements. I'll read through the recommendation just so we're very clear on its contents. A, that a formal review of Conway scrutiny arrangements be delayed until feedback is received from the Welsh Government Conference due to take place in autumn 2024 to better understand the time frame around any proposed national review and what will form part of that review. B, that in the meantime, existing good practice be identified and shared across all 4 of Conway's overview and scrutiny committees to ensure a consistent approach. For example, the introduction of SMART recommendations in all scrutiny reports. And C, that should the Welsh Government Conference not take place by November 2024, consideration be given to undertaking a formal review of the scrutiny function in Conway in order that improvements be implemented by next financial year. I'm happy to propose those recommendations.
Diolch yn fawr. Councillor Harry. Okay, we've got a proposer, Councillor Harry. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Austin. Any questions, members? Okay, I've got a proposer and a seconder. If we can now go to the vote, please, by show of hands in the chamber and on Zoom. Any against? Any abstentions? That's been carried, members. Moving on to agenda item 8, to receive the minutes of the meeting of the Standards Committee held on the 29th July 2024, pages 17 to 18. Members, you've all had an opportunity to have a read of those, so I presume I can have a proposal for that, please. Councillor Frank and Councillor Nia for second. Okay, members, any questions? Let's go to the vote then. If I could have show of hands in the chamber and on Zoom, please. Any against? And any abstentions? That's being carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving swiftly over to agenda item 9, membership of the Governance and Audit Committee, pages 19 to 21. Recommendations can be found on pages 19. Councillor Dilwyn Roberts, Cabinet Member and Portfolio Holder for Culture, Governance and IT, will present this report. Diolch, Councillor Dilwyn.
Thank you, Chair. There is a measure by the local government since 2011 to make it that we have to have a governance and audit committee and that we appoint their membership. There has been a recent change where I've come off that committee and we need a new member for that committee. As we all know, in May, quite often, that's when we do appoint the membership of various committees, but the council formally has to appoint somebody on that Governance and Audit Committee. So it's a pleasure for me to support the recommendation that the council confirms the appointment of Councillor Aaron Wynne as a member of the Governance and Audit Committee. Thank you.
Councillor Dilwyn. Okay, we've got a proposer, Councillor Dilwyn. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Nia? Okay, members, is there anyone wishing to put forward a question before we go to the vote? No. Okay, I could have a show of hands in the chamber and on Zoom, please. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's being carried, members. Okay, moving on to agenda item 10, Performance Self-Assessment 2023 to 2024, pages 22 to 145. Recommendations can be found on pages 23. Councillor Chris Cater, Cabinet Member and Portfolio Holder for Audit Policy and Performance, will present this report. Diolch, Councillor Chris.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Well, this large piece of work is at its final stage of approval, Chair, so I'm not going to repeat everything that was presented and supported at Governance and Audit, Overview and Scrutiny and Cabinet. However, I need to point out that importantly, this self-assessment provides an end-of-year analysis of progress and challenge based on our corporate plan priorities and the 7 governance areas. This is a statutory requirement, Chair, under the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021, and it satisfies our reporting requirements under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015. Of course, we'll all agree that we need to ensure transparency and optimal accessibility. You will notice the new format of the report and appendices, particularly the links to meetings, reports, press releases, etc., plus decisions taken at Cabinet, Governance and Audit and Overview and Scrutiny. Yola McGregor, our Strategy Performance and Engagement Manager, who is here this morning, has worked hard with his team to achieve this. If we look at Appendix 1, you can see on page 31 that we are specifically asking for young people's views and highlight the ways a young person can have their say in Conwy. I think that's very important. A summary of our performance and governance starts at page 34, and I'm not going to go through it all, but I would like to mention a few points, Chair, with your indulgence. First of all, our clear commitment to the environment is there, attracting some 42.6 million in external funding to support regeneration, arts and heritage businesses and communities is there. Our youth service work has been nationally recognised for its excellence, and we have rolled out the Welsh Government Free School Meals programme to all primary schools, and that's 7 months ahead of schedule. We now have a strong record of providing affordable homes and bringing empty properties back in use. We had a session on that yesterday. A lot of us attended. We are delivering exciting and really significant transformative work in the area of children's care. We have a clear plan to support Welsh in education settings. And as a governor of Ysgol y Creighton, I've seen firsthand the increase in pupils accessing Welsh medium education. Our inclusive Conway plan is an important step to achieve greater equity, diversity and inclusion in our organisation and the county generally. I can report to you this morning that we've just this week appointed a new diversity, equity and inclusion manager. Going forwards, Chair, we aim in the present climate of negative financial pressures and diminishing resources to do more benchmarking regarding value for money. We also intend to tighten the time lag of reporting. This report, as you can see, only takes us to March 24. So Iolo and his team will be starting work on the April to September 24 self-assessment very shortly. Remember, this report is a tool to examine performance across our authority and inform our forward work programme. And the question we must all ask ourselves is, are we achieving our outcomes? I can assure elected members that we are about to review the corporate plan itself through workshops, etc. And this should result in a smaller, more focused and consolidated plan that puts financial resilience first. It will detail what we hope transformation will bring to our local authority. So, as you've said, the relevant recommendation for council today is at 2.4 on page 23. And I propose, Chair, that council approve the performance self-assessment 2023-2024 as outlined in appendices 1 and 2. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chris, for your report and for your proposing this. Okay, do I have a seconder? Okay, members, I am now going to bring in Councillor Charlie.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to thank Iolo for what I think is a really excellent report, and the style that it's in now is really readable. We all have to read a huge amount of reports and audit reports, and I know myself, I tend to flick through and look at the red bits and focus on those because clearly we want to be open and transparent where we're not achieving what we want to achieve, and those are the areas that we look to fix. But I think it's really important sometimes, especially in a document like this, to take some time and reflect on the areas where we're doing really well. But there's lots of my favourite colour, green, in there, and despite really difficult circumstances, our officers continue in many, many fields to go above and beyond, and I think it'd be absolutely remiss of me not to thank them for their efforts. I'm really proud of what we do achieve. I'm always aware where there's areas where we could improve, and it is right that we sort of focus our attention on those. But yeah, I just wanted to add that. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Charlie. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to ask a question? Councillor Paul?
Yeah, this has been through heavy scrutiny, so I'm raising, in a sense, a new issue today because further information has come in. In paragraph 12 on the executive report, it reports that whilst reduced capacity as the workforce shrinks is a major issue, there are growing opportunities to consider new transformational ways of working, reducing bureaucracy, working in partnership, and harnessing emerging technologies. We have a report on the agenda at FROSC on Monday, though that we did make substantial cuts in this year, 11.5 million. The staffing, there are two reports, the dashboard and the other report, indicate that the workforce didn't shrink in 2023-24. So I'm actually questioning, Charlie, about the accuracy of that statement.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Paul. Can you put up your mic, please? Councillor Chris, would you like to come in on that, or is?
I would just like to Thank you, Chair. And this will be, there's actually 3 reports, HR reports going to Finance and Resources on Monday, which I'm sure will be examined. And that's where the scrutiny should really take place, I feel. But it's up to you, Chair. The other thing is that Councillor Paul is quite right that the actual head count has gone up slightly, but we also have to consider the roles because the numbers are different. A lot of officers have multiple roles in the authority. So I'd respectfully ask that we consider all this on Monday. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chris.
come back on that.
Excuse me, I'm talking. Please put off your mic. Councillor Chris, thank you very much for that. And I absolutely agree with you. It can go to FROSC and it can be discussed there where it should be. I have now got a proposer and a seconder. Is there anybody else wishing to say anything before we go into the vote? Councillor Paul, you've had your say and it will go to FROSC, as I've just said, on Monday. It will be discussed on Monday. Is that correct, Councillor Chris? I'm more than happy for that to happen then. I will accept this report as it is for now, and Monday can then be a new day. Okay, we have got a proposer and a seconder. If we're all willing to go to the vote by show of hands in the chamber and on Zoom.
Those against?
Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, members. That has been carried, I think, hasn't it, Matt? Yep, that's been carried. Okay, moving on to item 11. Item 11, which was actually item 12 in your paperwork. So this is pages 348 to 383, the annual overview and scrutiny report 2023 to 2024. Recommendations can be found on pages 348. Councillor Dilwyn Roberts, Cabinet Member for Culture, Governance and IT, will present this report. Diolch, Councillor Dilwyn.
It is a pleasure to present this report in front of you today as a council. It's a report that's been designed very, it's a good read. It's a pleasure to read it and to present it today. As you all know, we have 4 scrutiny committees in the county, and this is an overview of all 4 and the work that has been done in 23-24. And I want to, as one who used to be a deputy chair of the Finance and Resources Scrutiny Committee, I know how much work the chairs and the deputy chairs do for those committees, and I want to it's been great work, and thank you as well to all members who turn up at the attendance at these scrutiny committees in Conwy. It's something that we should be very proud of. There's no doubt about that. We've heard from the chair, from Harry, Councillor Harry, that there will be perhaps a change to scrutiny in the future, but we are waiting for a conference by Welsh Government, and that should be quite soon, hopefully. I don't want to lose the opportunity here today to note our thanks to Sian and the team who work for us as members and do all this work. All the work that's gone into this report this year, also on top of all the work they were doing with the election. And they're only a small team, and I definitely want it noted, our appreciation on behalf of us all, a big thank you for all their work during the year. And on that, I would like to propose that we accept the recommendations on page 348, 2.2, subject to consideration of the finance and resources overview that has happened last week, that Council approve the annual overview and scrutiny report for 2023-2024. Thank you very much.
Councillor Dillwyn, I'm just going to call in Rian, the Chief Exec.
Yes, just to reiterate what Councillor Dillwyn said, really, I won't probably be thanked for this because they do their job so diligently and they don't really like thanks. I know that, but I have to because it's a small team, and we know this is an aging chamber as well, which poses its own problems in itself. So I think it's no, I'm talking about. I want to make it absolutely clear. I'm talking about the building, right? The building. That's a terrible faux pas. No, it's incredible, really, the amount of work they get through. And as Dillwyn said, when you lump in 2 elections into that process as well, it's incredible. And I just want to thank under the guidance of Matt, Sian, and all the team that their work is incredibly appreciated. And we do turn to them very often for advice and seek their help. And in the scrutiny context, they are more than helpful to anyone who comes to with any questions. So I'd just like to get that on record, but not the bit about the chamber.
Diolch yn fawr, and I actually agree with Councillor Dillwyn. Okay, we've got a proposer. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Austin? Anybody wishing to ask any questions? No? Okay, members, we can now go to the vote. Oh, Councillor Hannah. Oh, well, you were very keen. Okay, members, if we can have a show of hands in the chamber on Zoom, please. Diolch yn fawr. Any against? Any abstentions? Members, that's being carried. Okay, moving on to agenda 12, which was the agenda item 11 in your reports, pages 146 to 347, the council tax premium on long-term empty homes and second homes. Okay, if we can all leave who have actually said, and then I will actually be going, and Councillor Sharon will be taking this item. As I put in a declared interest. So members, I will be back, as the Terminator said. Thank you. Item 11, which is now item 12. Council tax premiums on long-term empty homes and second homes, pages 146 to 347. Can I please ask Councillor Charlie McCoubry, the leader, to present the report? Thank you.
Again, diolch, Gareth. So members will be well aware that imposing any sort of taxation on people, whether it's council tax or premium, that council tax is a very, very serious thing and due of a lot of consideration. So you will note the report is 201 pages long. Alongside, I'd like to thank our officers for all the work they've put in giving us all the salient points, and also the huge amount of work that's gone in with a consultation to hear people's views. We know we have a housing crisis in Conwy. But we also know it's a crisis across the whole of the UK. Over the last 14, 15 years, supply has not kept up with demand for a variety of reasons. We are not a stockholding authority, but whether ourselves or if we were stockholding, it all comes down to having the capital funds to actually build houses and replace those that have been lost. It's particularly difficult in Conway, as we know, given our geography, topography. We have National Park to the west, which takes up about a third of the county. We've got a floodplain to the east. We're very constrained by our infrastructure along the A55 corridor, and members will all be acutely aware about issues with services, as we've evidenced in looking towards our replacement local development plan about having doctors, dentists, appropriate roads, etc., etc. So it is a challenge. That's been further exacerbated by cost of living crisis. When I had the housing portfolio in 2019, spend was hovering around the 400k level. There's been changes of legislation since then. Again, as I repeat, we are law takers, not lawmakers, but the number of people that we've got a statutory duty to look after has increased. We're now in an area where that actual figure is between 6 and 7 million. So it's a huge escalation, again, due to need and due to changes in legislation. So it is a real concern. It is a real problem for us moving forward. When we look at second homes and empty homes, I think we're all in agreement empty homes is an egregious waste of a precious resource. Second homes is slightly more complicated, but when you have a resource where there's lots of people don't have access to a single house, we have to ask ourselves, is it fair that people have 2 houses or 3 houses or 4 houses? It's always been the opinion of this council, certainly over the last few years, that in order to recognise that we would apply a premium. Last year, members will remember that the assumption was we'd move to a 200% increase in that premium, up to 200%. I'd like to thank the Task and Finish group who spent a lot of time considering this, and having given it due consideration, their recommendation on second homes was that it would they would increase it to 150% rather than the 200%. That position was supported at scrutiny. Again, there was some really, really good debate there. They were strong majority positions. I know not everyone will agree with it, but there was a really strong consensus. This is the right way forward. So I will open it up for members' discussion, but I would like to move the recommendations, which are on page 147, which is 2.41, to charge 150% council tax premium for second homes from the 1st of April 2025. 2.42 to charge a 200% council tax premium for long-term empty homes that have been empty for up to 5 years or less from the 1st of April 2025. To charge a 300% council tax premium for long-term empty homes that have been empty for 5 years or more from the 1st of April 2025. Place an indicative level of premium of 200% on both categories from the 1st of April 26, with an increased premium of 300% for long-term empty properties which have been empty for 4 years or more, subject to review during 25-26. It's important to note that that will be subject to review. The reason why that's set is there's headroom to increase it, but again, members can decide either to keep it the same or increase it by less, essentially. So that's for future discussion. 2.45 is to continue to not apply a discount in respect of second homes. Members with long memories will remember there was a time when housing wasn't in crisis and there were plenty of houses to go around that actually discounts were given to people who had a second home. We're clearly not proposing to do that, so that recommendation's in there as well. And 2.46 is in the event of premiums increase from April 25, the council approved the allocation of £50,000 from the premium income to support the administration of the premium, as set out in paragraph 3.21. And clearly it's a very small team who collects our council tax. We've got excellent collection rates, but I guess that gets harder year after year, not just where there's a premium applied. And so it's absolutely crucial that we collect all the council tax we should do. And to do that, you need staff and you need officers who can deal with that. Where people are having issues with council tax as well, it's not just about collecting the money, it's about dealing with them and helping them where there's difficulty. So having an appropriately staffed number of staff to carry out those functions is really important. So with that in mind, Chair, I'd like to move those recommendations. So thank you.
Deal, Councillor Charlie. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Charlie's recommendation? Oh, we have several. Nia, Councillor Nia, thank you. Okay, have several people who would like to ask a question. Councillor Andrew Wood, you were first.
Thank you, Chair. Acting Chair. I'm the chair of the working group. Charlie summed it up as usual very well, but I just infill with a few more reasons why we're come with the decisions and recommendations that Charlie's made. So We've basically had some working group on August the 14th, September the 18th, and then Finance Resources. And we've all come to the same decision that after listening to people's consultation and various other people and the group, we've gone from 200% down to 150% recommendation. To just add in there that the avoidance measures that have been given by Welsh Government over the last year or so, which is increasing in the terms of how a rented property in the business rates is tabled. It shows properties coming back into our normal rate system, and the avoidance ones seems to be a lot less, which is to be welcomed. The forecast income, which Charlie mentioned about, we've got a huge cost of homeless and so on and so forth, but the premium will actually cover, hopefully, as a forecast, 5.122 million, which will go towards, and is ring fenced, as members know, towards the housing projects and homeless costs that we already incur. Consultation, key consultation, 691 responses. Of that, 63% agreed with a 200% increase for long-term empty, and just under a third for the second homes increased to 200%. Now, a third's not a great amount, but that's a lot of people who've got second homes who are actually quite in agreement with, or who took part in the survey, took agreement for that. So there's obviously a trend there as well. Going back to tourism, quite a few comments in the consultation about tourism, the effect of tourism, but the Steam summaries show that tourism's gone up by about 0.2 billion over the last year or so, and that we're trending up by about 5% on hospitality and jobs, and increases on that. So that's obviously, it's been a struggle to recover since COVID times, but it's going in the right direction. And the other thing that I really want to put on, which comes from my rural members, and I take a steer from them, is a lot of the second homes and long-term empties are ABC, the cheaper properties. In ABC, nearly 48% of the second home and long-term empties are in that bracket of rent rates. If you add in D, that's up to 70%. So we're dealing with some rural homes, rural properties in towns, which are it could be cost effective if brought back into the market. These obviously, especially in the rural areas, and again, listening to Councillor Neera and other people, if these houses are empty, I know over one town not far from us, got 4 empty cottages. And I know that the person who owns those cottages is bringing them back into use now because the premiums are biting. But when you look at rural properties, and the amount of empties or second homes, when you look at Betsacoed 30%, Brogarman 10%, Capelcoed 20%, Dalwyddelan 10%, split even. That's not right. Another 10%. So listen to the rural members. Yes, we're going to bring. Hopefully, with the premiums, it'll focus people into releasing them back into the market, and then we can use those for rural families, maybe children. We'll bring a couple of £1,000 to each rural school and strengthen that area. Just a little one that there is a table here. It's well worth looking at and showing to your local town councils. It's got all your town councils there, but it does show that in Conway. Just Conway Town alone, there's 329 properties that we know about are affected by long-term empty or settled home. Llandudno, 531. 531 properties are second home or long-term empty, and that's what we know about. For long-term empties, there are grants available from Conway to bring long-term empties, and these are working. People are using them, and they've been taken up. There are properties coming back, as I said before, from NNDR. And there's some properties that are coming back from the business rates as they cannot meet the new regulations of what's coming from. Collection rate, that's the main worry for this council, always has been, apart from the last lack of council tax base, but it's still 97.11, so we're the 4th best in Wales. That was the figure that was given by Gareth. And the premiums have not affected the collection rate. The vote from the various was last Finance and Resources was a majority in favour of the recommendations that Charlie's that, and I will leave. Basically, I think one of the best phrases that Charlie's mentioned, he's taken it off to Chris Hughes, but Chris mentioned that, you know, his view on second homes is he doesn't believe them. And as Charlie and Chris said, there's some people haven't got any homes. They've in bed and breakfast. Some people got multiple homes. We need people to have their own home. And I recommend definitely to recommend the recommendations to our council, and especially 2.46, which is use ring fence or take some of the premium and use it for extra resources, so we can target those people that are unfortunately trying to skip our system. Finishing off now, thanks for listening to me, but I would just go say thank you to Susan Plum, Gareth, and all the people that have helped, especially my affordable housing and premium group, and I'll leave you to vote on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Can I ask Councillor Gronway now, please, for his question?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I was going to second the recommendation made by the leader and endorse the work of the working group. And thank you, Andrew, for those comments he's made there. So yes, it's already been seconded. So that's why I was going to second the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Gronway. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Charlie for presenting this so well and clearing up a lot of the issues, and to the Chair, Andrew Wood, for his comments. I've been on this committee since 2016 when it was first set up, and so I think it's probably for me to talk to a couple of the issues within this document. First of all, we have been conscious throughout the production of both this document and its predecessors that we needed to take it easy, we needed to be careful, we needed to be prudent as an authority so that we didn't negatively impact the local authority and our council taxpayers, but that we ensured that the system was fair. And I think we have done that, and I think we've done that consistently. The other issue, one of the other issues in the report, is a reference to a need for £50,000 worth of resources to support this. From day one, the finance department have indicated that as the workload increased, there would potentially become a need for additional resources to manage this, and that goes right back to 2016, and it was in the original reports. And I recognise that the team have done an amazing job in terms of not drawing on resources, but this year they are looking at this and saying we will need these additional resources to ensure that we are able to keep up the high level, a high standard of work that we're doing. And I would urge members to support that proposal as part of this, because they are doing an excellent job. There's no doubt about that. But I also wanted to highlight the fact that for the first time in those 8 years, this year we have actually seen some properties come back from NNDR into paying council tax, and ultimately that is what this council is about. That's what this committee is about. It is about ensuring that we have homes for local people as a priority. And I, for one, come into contact regularly with people who are living in bed and breakfast. There's a large hotel in my ward which is used for significant numbers of people who are in bed and breakfast, and they attend our warm hub that we have continued to run throughout the summer months and everything. And they don't want to live in bed and breakfast. They want permanent accommodation. Many of these are not, you know, what people would assume. These are local people who've fallen on hard times, but some still in employment and have families locally and have grown up locally. So I think it's important that we recognise the needs of our constituents and that we put them first, and that our priority should be to ensure that Conway residents have a roof over their head. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. I've got another three councillors who have requested to speak. That's Councillor Gareth, Councillor Nigel and Councillor Mike. So if I can ask Councillor Gareth first, please.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying I've got absolutely no issues with doing everything we possibly can to bring empty homes back into use. That is the absolute right thing to do, and we need to do everything we can to do that. I have got a couple of concerns with the second home side of things. The first concern is that you get the law of diminishing returns. As we increase the council tax up, it gives more of an incentive to actually take measures to avoid paying that council tax. And also it will drive more properties onto the market, I feel. So therefore, achieving those financial figures are put under pressure. My concerns with driving more properties onto the market are we really, where's the data to show that the properties that have come to the market already are actually going to the people who need those properties, the homeless in Conway? I've got real concerns that if these properties come to the market and they go into economically inactive or retired from outside Conway, then what we're doing is actually making the situation in Conway even worse. I think we need properties for local people and also to be attracting families, working families into Conway to help with the funding, but also to help with the job shortages and the skill shortages that we've actually got. And my real concerns is that we're actually attracting retired people, economically inactive people from outside Conway into the area, which will put more pressure, it's sooner rather than later, onto social services and all the other things that we've got. So I find it really difficult to support the increase without the data to show that we're actually achieving what we want to achieve and what we're trying to achieve, and not actually storing problems for ourselves going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth. Would you like to respond, Councillor Charlie?
Yeah, thank you, Gareth. I think that was certainly something the working group took into consideration in their decision to not stay at 200 and bring it down to 150. Housing is something I was involved with. Supply of all type of housing affects the markets. People in lower cost housing like to move up the ladder, and people like to move down the ladder. I mean, so any available housing improves the situation. I would point out that 47% are from memory in bands A to C. I think there's another 26% are bands D. So you're up to about 70% of these properties are in what I would class as our affordable sector. I think ultimately the solution is building more family homes. You know, I agree with that, but we can't stop the market as in who moves here, who doesn't move here. So yeah, it is a concern. It's always a concern when you move these things too quickly. I think we've been really measured in Conway, but that we've done it on a very gradual basis. I think for a lot of people, they were expecting it to be 200. I think the fact that it's 150 will give them some succor. So, but it is you know, a valid point. We need to build more houses. We need to build more houses that support our local residents. But we cannot have a situation, especially as Andy has highlighted, where in some areas, you know, there's a really, really severe pressure there. And it's not just the value of the properties, it's in terms of when I was selling houses, if somebody was a cash buyer, it wouldn't necessarily be a very expensive house, but they would not necessarily outbid a first-time buyer. They were just in a more proceedable position. So for that buyer, well, I'll take the person who's got cash, not the young person who's trying to get a mortgage. So we need more houses. This is not a magic bullet, but it is part of the solution. And certainly we have to stop that thing where a local person is outbid by somebody else for a second home. People want to move here and retire here. You know, that's their choice. We live in a very free country. So yeah, I do recognise it, but I do think the Working Party did take that on board in their decision to drop it from 200% to 150%.
Thank you. Are you content with that response, Gary?
Yeah, all I would say is, and I've asked it before, I haven't seen any data to prove that we are achieving what we want to achieve, and we're not achieving those unintended consequences. I recognise the difficulties and things, which is why I'd be more comfortable if we kept where we were until we had the data to prove that we were achieving what we were trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth. Could I ask Councillor Nigel next, please? Hi, Councillor Nigel, can you hear? No, it's frozen. Okay. Can we move on to Councillor Mike then, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I support this report and everything that's being said there. I think the biggest issue for me, and in particular in my ward, is the issue around properties that are going through probate. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think this report will impact on that. And I just, I've got one, well, it's about 3 properties, but one in particular is next door to a really amazing house, which is really blighting it. So my issue is, or the question is, what can we do about tackling probate and getting these houses back into use for local people? Because this report will not impact on that at all. And I know the issues, I've spoken before about it, but I still need to highlight that, whether it's Welsh Government or UK Government that can get a shift on to help us.
Thank you, Councillor Mike. Councillor Charlie, could you respond, please?
Yeah, no, when I had the Buffalo, Mike invited me to meet the young couple whose life was blighted by a house that had been empty for 10, 15 years. It was a brother and sister who didn't agree as to what should happen, so they hadn't taken it through probate. Therefore, nobody pays council tax. We've had ongoing battles in terms of doing work to tidy it up, and it's really difficult. But it has been raised at the national level. At the moment, there is no time limit on probate. If people don't want to proceed with probate, it just sits there and rots essentially, which is really detrimental. There has been an ask of Welsh Government to look at that, and for me, there should be a sensible time limit. Clearly, when somebody inherits a house, that can take some time to deal with the bereavement and to deal with family issues. But for me, a sensible figure would be around 5 years before there was then a charge imposed upon it. But it has been raised, Mike. But it's a national issue rather than a Conway issue.
Thank you, Councillor Charlie. Fred would like to come in on that.
Yes, and on the back of that, I think there is work we can do to educate around options for executors who are dealing with probate, because clearly in the interim there is a duty on the executor to get as much in for the estate as possible. If that property is sitting empty, there may be something we need to think about with our housing colleagues around promoting different lease schemes that we have on those type of properties for the short term, because clearly having a property empty is not good for anyone, is it, in those circumstances? So I think there has been talk in the housing board, etc., around different elements of that. So yeah, I'll certainly take that up, Councillor Mike. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response, and I'd be more than willing to give you the property addresses so we can expedite that.
Thank you, Rin. Councillor Nigel, we lost you, but I believe you're back.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. My IT just died on me, but I'm back on my iPad. Thank you for allowing me to speak. First of all, I want to thank Gareth and the team for the excellent work they've done, and also the Council Tax Working Group and Councillor Wood in particular for his chairing of that group. They've obviously taken a measured decision here, not wanting to go too fast, too soon, and to bear in mind the evidence that's been coming forward from officers. I mean, clearly we have here nationally a housing crisis, not just in Conway. I was listening to some of the comments of Councillor Gareth, and North Wales, as far as I'm concerned, has been a retirement area all my life. All my life. It's where people have come to retire. It's not a new thing. And as a council, we have many tools at our disposal to try and address the housing crisis, and council tax premiums is just one of them. We have to be mindful that the additional premium that we charge on these properties helps support our homeless and our emergency accommodation, although that's not its primary purpose. That's what it does, and I think that the recommendation from the working group sort of points that way, that we don't want to move too quick, too soon, and lose that additional premium whilst we need the houses. We are working as a council in several different areas to try and address the housing shortage. Most recently, for the first time, I think, in a decade, the planning committee approved a small housing development in the Kimble Bay area in the east of the county to challenge Natural Resource Wales on their limitations in the east to see if bringing development is possible in a safe way. We're also working with a community group, Llanfwyo in Llanefydd, on a community housing proposal that they're hoping to bring forward. So we're working in the rural areas, in the coastal areas, in the east, in the flood zone. We're trying to address the housing risk. But what I will say to members is also, as a county councillor of 10 years, and I spent 10 years on the planning committee, whenever we try to address the housing shortage and propose housing in other areas of the county, it's not been met with open arms by our members. And we need to really sit back and recognise that we do have a housing crisis here, and all of us will have to share some of that pain. But with that, I would like to say that I support the recommendation. Again, I want to thank the working group and the officers for all the work they've done, and leave it to the members to vote on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Can I bring in Councillor Louise now, please?
Thank you, Chair. This issue is obviously always about balance, balancing in the community, the different types of homes that are in each of our very different communities in Conway. And in agreeing with Gareth, I don't have a problem with empty homes being brought back into use and people being forced to make those decisions. But obviously every empty home has a story behind it. I'm sure a lot of them aren't just sat there because they can't be bothered to renovate it. There's reasons why the properties haven't been brought back into use. And one of the things I just want to, the irony really, that a lot of our empty homes, particularly the rundown ruins in a lot of our rural areas, have been bought and renovated and brought back into use as a property by second homeowners. They have done a lot of the work and the investment to bring that into, have it as a second home. But that doesn't mean it will be a second home forever. It becomes a property that can be lived in, particularly in villages like Penmachno. And then obviously in the future, it could well be someone's primary home. A lot of second homeowners buy these homes and then as they get older decide to retire here. And then obviously it becomes their primary home. So I think there's a bit of an irony there is that the second homers will not now buy these wrecks that we find in our rural villages and do them up and make them into a home, because it takes a lot of money and it's hard for local families on perhaps not on the highest incomes to raise the money to do that. So I think that's going to be a bit of a loss. And as I said, I supported up to 50%. I don't know what year that was, because I agreed that there should be a contribution towards the housing budget. And I felt that on my Laffer curve, we all know what the Laffer curve is. When you increase taxes, and if you increase them too much, it reduces the overall government revenue. So on my Laffer curve, I felt that was enough. And that's why I felt that going even to 100% was going to have an impact. And we say that we've not gone too quick or too soon, but as a person paying your council tax bill, 12 months goes like that. So 100% 1 year, 12 months later, 150. That's soon. That means within 12 months, you have to find another chunk of money. So I don't believe if you're sat there receiving your council tax bill that we have taken our time with this and given people that opportunity. 12 months is nothing within properties. Are you going to sell? What are you going to do? Are you going to turn it into a holiday let? Is that possible? All those decisions that people have to make. I think that's an unfair to think that they can do that within 12 months and then it's another 50%. I appreciate what the working group have done. I appreciate they've looked into all the areas and they've decided to not have 200%, but am I going to be here this time next year and they'll decide that it's 200% and then the year after 250 and then the year after 300? That's where I think we're going. And I don't think people understand that at some point this is going to have a detrimental effect on the amount of revenue we're going to raise. And obviously, as Gareth said, we need to see that if a second home comes on the market, who is going to be buying it. If you're living in a B&B and you haven't got you've got a very low income and things have not gone right for you, it's unlikely you're going to be able to go and get a mortgage. It's likely that you're going to have to be able to rent a property first. Now, obviously, there's a debate about landlords that we don't really have any control over, but those second homes aren't necessarily going to go to the right people, and that does concern me. But we are where they are. I know the room will disagree with me, but I'm not going to support the the proposal today. I think it's gone too far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Louise. Councillor Charlie.
Yeah, just on a practical point, Louise, obviously people were given a year's notice that it was going to be 200, it's dropped to 150, but there is an exemption for further year. If they now decide that enough's enough, I need to sell this property, then there would be another 12 months without any premium at all. So I think 2 years is time to make a decision, but I do take your point. And that's both for rental and for sale. If you decide to rent it to a local family, you get a year's exemption while you're renting it.
Thank you, Councillor Charlie. Content with that response. Thank you. Councillor David Carr.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I absolutely support this policy. It's the right policy. We have been cautious and it's not gone to 200, it's gone to 150%. But I do have sympathy with people that have to pay this extra, you know, but I have even more sympathy with the homeless. Not to have a home is the worst thing. You know, I really think that having all these empty homes, when we've got a housing crisis in Conway, it's an issue that has to be addressed, particularly in the rural areas where people are finding it difficult to stay with family and having to move away when there's no properties available and there's empty homes within that area. So I support this, and other ways that we can look to go forward in the future is maybe the RSLs and maybe the council itself could actually buy up some of these homes, because the housing crisis is getting worse, you know. And I know there's a lot. I listened to what Councillor Emery was saying earlier, and there's a lot of mitigation. We're doing quite a lot, but it is still a real problem. Having even one family in a bed and breakfast to me is unacceptable. So yeah, I think we should support this policy, and I think we're moving in the right direction. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. I've got 3 further speakers: Councillor Austin, Councillor Harry, and Councillor Tristan. So, Councillor Austin, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And you're doing a very good job as well. I've heard year after year since I've been a councillor. I've been a councillor since 8 years now. My friends on the right are always opposing an increase in the premium on second homes and so on. 8 years ago, when I was, or 9 now, I think, it was 25%, and that was 25% for years. And in our Plaid Cymru group, we were always asking to increase it, and the answer was no, that would be dangerous. People would transfer their holiday homes to be holiday lets and so on and so on. 9 years later, we're finally starting to follow our neighbours in Gwynedd and on Anglesey, and our neighbours down in Pembrokeshire. And in Pembrokeshire, it's 300%. And it has made a difference. Yes, houses do come back on the market, and that's what we need. Yes, there are problems. Yes, people still can't afford these houses, but that's because the estate agents and owners of these homes are sitting on their backsides wanting the price they want, rather than the price, a fair price, an affordable price for everybody else. In the last election in 2022, the leader asked myself if we as a group would be part of the coalition, and I told them we would be more than happy if you can guarantee to myself the support of your group and the Labour group to support an increase in the premium on holiday homes to 50%, and that was agreed. What astounded me was the following year they wanted to raise it 100%, and I agree we have to do it slowly, but we also have to take notice on what's happening around us. It's worked in Gwynedd, it's worked in Pembrokeshire where it's 300%. Another thing as well, another thing that makes me happy really is our predecessor, the finance director, for years, the advice was not to raise it more than 25% because, according to him, it was going to be negative. He thought people would flip. Well, we have a strategic director now who's ready to listen to councillors. We have a strategic director now that is brave, and I haven't heard her say that we shouldn't raise the premium to 150%, because I can tell you now, because her predecessor would have stood up and he would have warned us. So that makes me happy really, and I think maybe next year, if we will be 200, I think maybe she will tell us not to. And that when that will happen, I will be ready to listen. But in the meantime, I'm 100% support this, exactly like my members in Plaid Cymru do. And I beg you here now, even the people on the right side here, to change your minds and to support this, because in the end, we want local people to have a right to afford homes in the communities where they've grown up in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin, for making your point so passionate. Thank you. Next speaker, Councillor Harry.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to ask a question around this policy as a whole. I'm not wanting to get hung up on the size or level of the premium we're looking at. I made my comments in Finance and Resources Scrutiny some time ago. But it's a question for the Cabinet, just based on something that was mentioned earlier in this meeting, and actually something in this report. Now, we know that additional revenue raised from this premium is used to support housing services delivered by this local authority. We know that a significant amount of the revenue generated by the premium has been allocated to housing services. I was a little bit surprised, therefore, to hear the comment that raising additional revenue for the authority is not the primary purpose of the policy, and that revenue being allocated to housing services. So I'd like to know, therefore, what actually is the point of the policy if it isn't to generate additional revenue to support local housing services.
Thank you, Councillor Harry. Charlie will respond to you. Thank you.
So I think the policy is very clear. I think it recognises the pressure that people having two homes has on the actual availability of stock. So it's there to discourage people from buying a second home when they could buy a chalet or a camper. There are other ways you can come and holiday here. But it's then right that you recognise that those second homes are putting pressure on the housing stock. That's increasing the pressure of homelessness, that you then use that money, to relieve the symptoms it's causing. It could go into the general revenue, but then I think it's absolutely right that where there's something exacerbating a problem, that the money from that is used to support the consequences of that problem. So, it's a technical thing in a way, I suppose. And it's quite a difficult thing because we want to increase the supply of houses. We want to decrease our homelessness, which will improve our finances because, as I say, it's heading over £7 million now. But we are mindful that it does bring in a premium which helps support that. But I would rather, if we had no homelessness and we had no budget going, that would be where I'd like to get to. But we have to be realistic about this. But my understanding as well, it's government policy that the money had to be ring fenced to use towards the pressures that caused by homelessness, Harry. But maybe the chief executive can clear that up. And just while I'm on, Chair, I just think, just with Austin's part, to defend our own Section 151 officer, I think a real material difference is previously you could flip your property with 70 days let. The fact that that's moved to 182 makes it much more difficult, and it basically means sure you have to be doing it properly and realistically. It's still a bugbear of mine. That's small business rate relief, which was brought in 2008 to support the high street, is extended to second homes. I think it would be far easier to remove that relief from second homes, and then they would contribute council tax to the services that we all rely on. But that's for people on a bigger pay grade than me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charlie. Harry, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I will do. So I remember, and I can't recall if Charlie was the leader at the time or if he's the cabinet member for housing, but in a previous role, he stood at the lectern there. I'm sure that his comments were essentially a limited premium on second homes was the right thing to do, as it was legitimate to say, look, you've got a second home, that's effectively a luxury commodity. It's right that you pay a little bit extra to support housing services here in Conway. We seem to have had a complete change from that policy. So I'm interested to know what's caused the change from saying we want to generate revenue to support housing services in Conway to saying we want to apply a large premium to second homes and long-term empty properties at the risk of being able to fund local housing services. I'd like to know where that change in policy has come from, because it's a very big departure.
No, for me, the principle was whether people who have the luxury of second home should be paying more. We see that with cars and sort of tax rates and all the rest of it, that they move around. So the principle is there. The amount is a slightly different thing. For me, my concern before was that it was very, very simple for people to flip to a second home because they just had to say it was 70 days and then we would lose all the money. So the risk of pushing people was far greater to us than it is now, because I think now to be a proper second home, 182 days is significant. You can't play about it. You have to do it properly. So the principle hasn't changed. The actual amount has changed, but that's because we can apply it properly without people evading it by letting their homes for up to 70 days. So it's been more difficult for people to flip, essentially.
Thank you. I think we need to move on now. Councillor Tristan, you've had your hand up quite a while.
Thank you. I will be speaking in Welsh. I'm glad to see Councillor Nigel has referred to Llanefydd there and what's happening in Llanefydd with Llanfywia. But the point is, in Llanefydd, there's a whole generation nearly who've had to move out because they can't afford local houses. And this is partly answers Councillor Harry's point in the way that it's the principle more than anything, because the irony is now is the school in Llanefydd has closed and hopefully there will be new homes, but for the first time in 20 years, 25 years, and you can see the big problem in rural areas. And simply, I'm glad to support this in front of us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tristan. And Councillor Louise would like to come back in briefly.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to come back on Councillor Austin's points. Just a couple of them, really. I think it's a little bit early to say that it's working in Gwynedd. I think Article 4 is incredibly restrictive on all properties. And just anecdotally, a family I know that live in Gwynedd who are struggling to get a mortgage because of the property will have a restriction on it, and it will mean that when they come to sell it, if you imagine that when the bank comes to sell it, if they default, the market will be less available to them to be able to sell it to whoever they like. So be careful when you start putting restrictions on the market. I think Gwynedd are going to regret that decision. But it's glad to hear from Councillor Austin, and obviously he only spoke, so I can't talk for the whole of his group, but that your LAFA curve will probably be around 150% if the finance director says next year that that's about the right level. So I think it's this time next year. Let's see what happens.
Thank you, Councillor Louise. Before we go to the vote, would you like to exercise your rights of reply, Councillor Charlie?
I think you've all heard enough from me today. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to the vote. So Councillor Charlie has proposed the recommendations. They've been seconded by Councillor Nia. Can we have a show of hands, please, both in the chamber and online? Who is for the proposal? And those against, please. And any abstentions? No, that's been carried. Thank you. Can we call the other councillors back in, please? It's been quite a long one, hasn't it?
Sean.
Chair.
Sean. Shannon. Thank you, members.
Oh.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Frank.
Thank you, Chair. You just missed very good debate. But what I want to bring to the attention of members goes back to the longest yarn. The longest yarn is excellent. It is a bit of history, but more importantly, for Conway, there's a bit of Conway history there that I've been talking on this week, and it's in Mulberry Harbour, which is not part of the exhibition, but it was brought up in 1917 by Sir Winston Churchill that we needed such a thing. And after Dieppe, the tragedy of Dieppe, the War Cabinet decided that we need a floating harbour to support our troops on the beachhead. This was engineered by a chap from Bangor, a chap called Hugh Lawrence Hughes, and the prototype was built by 1,000 people, excuse me, 1,000 people in Conway. This is a part of Welsh history. 2.5 million men crossed tanks, equipment to fight in the Gold Beach in the Battle for Normandy. So thank you, Chair. And the way, Chair, this finishes on the 29th of October. Is it? Okay.
Thank you so much for that, Councillor Frank. That was really interesting. And members, I would really suggest, if you can, to go and see the longest yarn in Trinity Church in Llandudno. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending today and participating. And I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Hwyl fawr.